The alien ship hovered silently above the thick green forest. There was no sound, no wind, only the cold shadow of the ship blocking the sun as it floated in the sky like a silent predator. Inside the ship, young alien students stood in a line. Their skin colors were different: blue, gray, green, and their bodies shook. This was the final survival test. No tools, no weapons, no help. 6 hours in the deadly forest below. The first alien, a tall creature with glowing red eyes, stepped forward. A loud voice echoed in the chamber. "Begin." The floor under him vanished, and he dropped screaming through the air. A second later, gone into the forest. The others gasped. One by one, more students were dropped. Screams filled the air. Some fought to stay inside the ship, some cried, some simply froze. At the end of the line stood a human. His name was Jack Cole. He wasn't shaking, he wasn't crying, he looked straight ahead, calm and quiet. Unlike the others, he wasn't scared. "Human," said the voice, "you are the last." Jack nodded once. "Begin." The floor dropped. Jack fell fast, slicing through the air like a falling rock. His eyes didn't blink. No scream came from his mouth. He twisted his body and hit the thick leaves of a giant tree. He bounced from branch to branch until finally landing hard on his feet in the dirt. Dust rose around him. Birds flew off. In panic, Jack looked up at the trees. Tall, strong, perfect for building. Then he smiled. The forest was alive. Strange roars echoed from deep inside. The trees were wide and old, with thick roots that twisted out like claws. The sun peeked through the branches, but shadows moved fast on the ground. A few hundred meters away, the first alien student cried loudly. He had fallen into a swamp. His body was covered in slime and bugs crawled over his skin. He screamed. Again, no one helped him. They were all too busy panicking. Another alien had climbed a tree, shaking, hiding from the sound of footsteps in the bushes. One more ran in circles, trying to call for help using his broken communicator. Nothing worked. They were trapped. But Jack was already working. He tore off one sleeve from his shirt and wrapped it around his hand. Then he grabbed a dry vine and began pulling. He looked for long sticks, thick branches, and dry leaves. Every step he took was careful, quiet. He placed 2 sticks into the ground, then tied a horizontal branch across them, then another and another. A small frame began to form. It wasn't just a shelter. He was building something far above the trees. Hidden drones recorded every moment. Alien instructors watched from screens, confused. Why is the human not afraid? He has no tools. He shouldn't know how to build so fast. In the forest, an alien student named Carrick saw Jack through the trees. Carrick was scared, shaking, hiding behind a bush. He watched the human bend wood and tie it together. His hands moved like he had done this 100 times. Carrick whispered, "How does he know all this?" Then something growled behind him. Carrick ran, screaming into the trees. Jack didn't even turn to look. He heard the scream. He heard the growl, but he didn't stop. He had work to do. An hour passed, then 2. The sun was now lower in the sky. The forest shadows grew longer. 1 alien was missing. 1 had fainted. 2 had climbed the same tree and refused to come down. Jack's shelter now had a roof that it stood almost 6 feet above the ground. He had used tree bark for the walls, vines for rope, and large leaves for shade. It wasn't pretty, but it was strong. Near the base he dug a small hole, filled it with dry grass, and used 2 sharp stones to strike sparks. The fire didn't start immediately, but Jack didn't stop. Spark, 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 then flame. The fire lit his eyes with orange light. In the distance, 1 alien screamed again. This time the scream was cut off quickly. The others froze. Something was hunting them, something big. But Jack was calm. He reached into the firelight and held up a sharpened stick. He had carved it using a sharp stone. A weapon, simple but deadly. Above, the instructors were silent. "This human is dangerous," one whispered. "He's not surviving," said another. "He's controlling." The forest got quiet as night began to fall. Even the creatures in the trees seemed to keep away from Jack's fire. A pair of glowing eyes stared at him from the dark, then turned and disappeared. The wind whispered through the branches. The forest had accepted him, or feared him. Jack sat inside his half-built shelter, watching the fire. No fear in his eyes, only thought, only strategy. The forest didn't sleep. As night fell, a strange wind moved through the trees. The branches swayed, and shadows danced across the ground like ghosts. Every creature in the woods seemed to be watching, waiting. Alien student Carrick was running. His chest hurt. His legs were shaking. He had seen something with glowing red eyes and 4 legs. It didn't make a sound. It just followed him through the trees. Behind him, twigs cracked, leaves rustled. Carrick didn't look back. He ran faster. Then he tripped at his face, hit the ground. Mud filled his mouth. He coughed and looked up, his eyes wide. Silenced, the red eyes were gone. But now, he was completely lost. Not far away, Jack Cole sat by his fire, sharpening another stick. His tree structure now had walls on 2 sides and a narrow wooden ladder. Above him, 2 thick branches crisscrossed, giving support to his growing shelter. He didn't rush, he didn't panic. He worked like a machine. He reached into his belt, pulled out a long vine, and tied another log in place. His eyes scanned the trees, watching the shadows. His ears picked up every sound: footsteps, breathing, whispers in the dark, but nothing surprised him. He had lived in worse. An alien named Farah watched him from the bushes. Her skin was pale blue and she was hiding under a layer of leaves. She didn't understand. Jack had built half a house in just 2 hours. He had no tools, no help. Yet he looked like he belonged here. Even the wild animals avoided him. Farah had tried building a shelter earlier, but her hands shook too much. She had given up after 10 minutes. She had seen 3 aliens already break down in tears. But the human, he was building a kingdom. Somewhere deeper in the woods, a long scream echoed, then silence. One less alien. Farah trembled. She didn't want to die, she didn't want to fail, but she was afraid to go near Jack. He was human. They said humans were dangerous. They said humans were clever. They said humans learned fast. But this was different. He didn't just survive, he thrived inside. The orbiting control room. Alien instructors watched Jack's live video feed. Their screens showed every student, every movement, every failure. But the human, his camera showed something different. Progress, leadership, danger. He has built faster than any alien, one instructor said. He knows the forest. Another whispered. No, said the commander. The forest knows him. Back on the ground, Jack climbed into his structure and looked at the stars through a gap in the roof. His fingers were covered in dirt. His arms were scratched, but his face remained calm. He took a deep breath. Then he heard something move. He looked down. A pair of glowing green eyes stared at him from the base of the tree. They blinked slowly. A creature tall, thin, with fur like smoke stood there, sniffing the air. Jack didn't move. He slowly reached for his fire. He grabbed a burning stick and held it high. The creature growled low, then stepped back. Another second passed, then it vanished into the trees. Jack sat still, listening behind him. One of his traps, made of rope and thorn struck. A loud snap echoed through the forest. He smiled slightly. His defenses worked. Farah finally stood up from the bushes. She had been watching. She had seen Jack scare away the beast with just a flame in his eyes. Her hands were still shaking, but her fear of the forest was now less than her fear of failing. She stepped closer. Jack heard her footsteps. He picked up another stick and pointed it at the noise. Who's there? Farah raised her hands. Don't attack. I want help. Jack didn't lower the stick. Help with what? Surviving, she whispered. Like you. Jack didn't speak for a long moment. Then, he tossed her a branch. Start with that. Farah was confused. What? Make something, anything. If you're going to stay near me, you work. No one gets a free pass. She nodded quickly and dropped to her knees. Her hands still shook, but she began tying 2 sticks together, copying what she had seen Jack do earlier in another part of the woods. 3 alien students sat around a small fire, whispering. One of them had a long scratch across his chest. He said it was from a creature with black wings. They were afraid. One said, the human is building something big. Another said, he's not normal. The third just stared into the flames. He doesn't fear this place, he owns it. Morning came slowly. The forest was quiet now, like it was watching. Birds flew above the trees, circling something in the distance. From a high tree branch, one alien spotted a wooden structure, tall, strange, almost like a tree tower. It was Jack's, built with vines, wood, and fire. Stronger than anything the alien students had, and he wasn't finished yet. Darkness came fast. The sky turned black like spilled ink. The forest changed. It was no longer just trees and vines. It became a maze of shadows, whispers, and silent threats. Even the wind moved differently now, brushing the leaves in short, sharp bursts. Alien student Rukul stood under a tree holding a sharp rock in both hands. His breathing was fast. His eyes searched the dark for shapes. Any shape. He couldn't see anything, but he felt it. Something out there was moving. Suddenly a scream cut through the night. It was long, full of pain, and ended too quickly. Dropped the rock and ran. He didn't look back, not far away. Jack Cole sat inside his half-finished treehouse holding a fire stick. The small flame lit his face. Around him, wooden walls were tied tightly with vines. The base was strong now. Above him, a thick roof of branches covered most of the open sky. Only a few stars peeked through. Next to him sat Farah, the alien who had asked for help. She didn't talk much. She was too busy copying Jack's moves, sharpening sticks, tying branches, stacking dry wood. Her fingers bled from the work, but she didn't stop. Every sound in the woods made her jump. Jack didn't react to anything. He had already prepared for night. A small set of traps surrounded his camp ropes with hooks, holes with spikes, and branches tied like whips. Simple but dangerous. He had tested each one. High above in the sky, the alien instructors watched the live feeds. Most of the students were hiding under trees or up in branches, shaking. Their heat signatures were weak. Their hearts were racing. Jack, his camera showed a different picture. Firelight.movement.structure. The human is too calm, one instructor said. He has made a base in less than 3 hours, said another. The commander leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen. He's not just surviving, he whispered. He's preparing for something. In the forest, near a swamp, alien student Torek tried to light a fire with his claw. His hands were wet. Everything was wet. The ground sucked at his feet. Mosquitoes the size of coins bit his arms. Suddenly, the ground beneath him moved, not shook, moved. A mound of dirt opened, and something rose out of it. Long legs, dark-skinned eyes like silver stones. Torek didn't scream, he just vanished. Back at Jack's camp, Farah was whispering, "There's something out there," she said. "Something's taking the others." Jack nodded slowly. "I know. You're not afraid." "I was the first time." Farah frowned. "The first time." Jack didn't answer. Instead, he stood up, climbed to the roof of his treehouse, and stared into the dark. He saw two glowing eyes. They stared back. Neither moved. Then the eyes blinked and vanished into the trees. The wind picked up. It was cold now. The kind of cold that touched the bones. Somewhere nearby, a wooden trap snapped. A loud crack echoed. Jack didn't blink. "That's trap 3, he said softly. Farah looked up. "What was in it?" "We'll check in the morning." She shook her head. "You act like you've done this before." Jack looked at her. His face was hard. "That's because I have." The treehouse creaked slightly in the wind, but it held strong. Jack had built it with care. Every log was tight, every rope was double knotted. The fire below kept small animals away, but it was the silence that protected them most. Jack didn't speak unless he had to. Farah finally asked, "Where did you learn all this?" Jack answered without looking at her. Earth. Far in the distance, a roar rose from the forest. It was deep and long, like thunder inside a mountain. The birds stopped, the wind froze. Even the trees seemed to lean away. Farah gasped. "That wasn't a student." "No," Jack said. "That was the forest." One alien student was seen running through the woods on a nearby drone feed. He looked over his shoulder again and again. Behind him, trees broke. Something was chasing him. He jumped into a river. The thing didn't follow, but neither did the student rise back up back at the camp. Jack placed sharpened branches across the entry path to his shelter. Then he grabbed a vine and pulled it tight, across the top window frame. It was meant to trip anything climbing in. Farah whispered, "You think it'll come here?" Jack replied calmly, "It already did." High above, the instructors had no words. Their maps showed blinking dots for each student. 10 were missing, 5 were injured. 3 had shut off their cameras, only 1 moved with steady purpose. Jack, the human. The night stretched on, hour after hour. Farah finally fell asleep against the wall, but Jack stayed awake, watching, listening, planning. His eyes stayed open, glowing orange in the firelight. This forest wasn't home, but it would be. He would make it. His high above the planet. The alien control station floated in silence. Inside the giant silver ship, alien commanders stood around glowing screens. Dozens of student feeds were active, but most showed darkness, shaking cameras, or terrified faces. One screen was different. One screen showed firelight, wooden walls, movement. The human. Jack Cole. He was still building. Still alive, still calm. An alien technician leaned forward. "Commander, look at this." The human. "He's reinforcing his structure." The commander stepped closer. His long fingers tapped the screen. He added roof supports. "Those aren't just walls. That's the start of a stronghold." Another officer spoke, his voice tense. "The rest are falling apart. The forest is taking them, but not him." Back in the forest, morning light cut through the thick trees. The sounds of the night were gone, but something was different. The air felt heavy, like the forest had seen something it didn't understand, was trying to forget it. Farah woke up slowly, her body sore from sleeping on wood. She blinked and looked around. Jack was gone. Panic filled her chest. Then she heard something outside. She peeked over the edge of the platform and saw him. Jack stood next to one of his traps, holding a long vine. At his feet was a dead creature, long four-legged beast with sharp claws and thick black fur. It looked like a shadow with teeth. Farah gasped. "You killed it." Jack shook his head. "The trap did." He tied the creature's body to a branch and began dragging it toward the treehouse. Farah didn't move. She just watched in silence. This human, he was something else, far away. Alien student Dren crawled out of a bush. His arm was bleeding. His eyes were wide. He had been chased all night, and now he was barely alive. He whispered to himself, "Where is he?" "The human. I need to find the human." He staggered through the trees, broken and scared. Inside the control room, another technician called out, "Commander, we have motion. One student is heading toward the human." The commander narrowed his eyes. "Let him go. Let's see what happens." Back at the camp, Jack stood over the fire, roasting small parts of the dead creature. He didn't eat yet. He just watched it cook, slowly turning the stick with careful hands. Farah sat nearby, holding one of Jack's sharpened spears. She didn't feel safe, but she felt safer than anywhere else in the forest. Suddenly a voice came from the trees.
"Wait.
Please, don't hurt me." Jack grabbed a burning stick and turned toward the sound. It was Dren. He stepped into view, arms up, eyes wide. "I mean no harm. I need help." Jack didn't say anything. He stared at the alien for a long second. Then he pointed to a thick log. "Carry that. If you want food, you work." Dren didn't hesitate. He rushed over and picked up the log with both hands, even though his legs were weak. Farah watched him, surprised. Just yesterday, no alien wanted to go near Jack. Now they were coming to him. Above, in orbit, the instructors were stunned. They're gathering around him, one said. He's not just surviving anymore, said another. He's leading. Back in the woods, Jack handed Dren a piece of roasted meat. Dren bit into it fast, chewing like he hadn't eaten in days. Jack spoke quietly. This forest doesn't care if you're rich, smart, or fast. It only respects work and traps. Dren nodded quickly. I'll do anything. Just don't send me back out there. Jack looked at him, then built. By midday, the treehouse had 2 levels. Farah and Dren were stacking logs. Jack tied them with vines, weaving the rope tighter. Then steel. The second floor was starting to take shape. A small lookout point faced east, above the trees. Jack stood at the edge, watching the forest below. Birds circled in the distance, but they didn't come near. Not anymore. In another part of the woods, 2 alien students sat under a rock overhang. One of them was crying. The other whispered. He built a castle in 6 hours. I heard he trained in Earth's wild zones, the crying one said. Places even our warriors can't survive. That's not training, the other said. That's something else. Inside the control room, the commander turned away from the screen and spoke to his officers. This is no longer a test, he said. It's a message. Message? One asked. The commander nodded slowly. The humans are not weak. They don't panic. They build, they adapt, and they lead. Silence filled the room. No one argued. They were all thinking the same thing. What happens if Earth sends more like him? As the sun dipped low, the forest seemed to bow before the structure Jack had built. Smoke rose from the fire. The tower stood, tall, stronger than any shelter ever built during this exam. Inside the treehouse, Jack sat quietly sharpening more sticks. Farah and Dren slept near the wall, breathing slowly. Jack's eyes stayed open, watching, calculating. The creatures of the night would return. But this time, they would find something waiting for them. Something built by a human, something made for war. The forest went quiet again, not soft, but dead quiet. No birds, no wind, no rustling, just silence heavy and deep like a warning. Jack Cole stood at the edge of his treehouse, spear in hand. His eyes scanned the forest below. The air had changed. Even the smoke from the fire moved slower, like it didn't want to rise. Inside the camp, Farah and Dren were awake. They looked at Jack, then at each other. They could feel it too. Something was coming. Far below, the traps were ready. Ropes stretched across paths, spikes hidden under leaves. Swinging logs tied to vines, built from nothing but nature and survival. Instinct. This wasn't a test anymore, it was a battlefield. Then it began a long howl, low at first, then high, then more joined at howls from the east, from the west, from the north. Too many. The creatures were hunting. Together, Dren grabbed a spear and rushed to the window. How many are there? Jack didn't answer. He didn't blink. He was counting. The time between howls. 4 minutes, he said calmly. They'll be here soon, Farah whispered. What do we do? Jack turned. Hold your weapons. Trust the traps and don't run. Dren was shaking. Don't run. But what if they? Jack cut him off with a sharp look. If you run, you die. Silence. Farah and Dren nodded. They believed him now. He wasn't a student, he was something else. The first creature came from the shadows. It was fast, too fast. A blur of dark fur and glowing yellow eyes. It sprinted toward the tree. But Jack's first trap triggered a hidden rope, pulled tight and yanked the beast into the air, spinning it upside down. It roared and thrashed, but it was caught. Then came 3 more. They charged straight toward the base. Farah screamed, but Jack was already moving. He lit a second fire stick and threw it into the grass. The flame exploded. Upward, a hidden ring of oil around the treehouse caught fire, burning bright like a wall of light. The creatures backed away, growling, but more were coming from the west. 2 dark shapes leaped through the bushes. They hit the swinging log trap. Crack. The wooden beams slammed into their sides, throwing them backward with a painful thud. One didn't get back up, Dren whispered. That would have killed me. Jack stepped down the ladder halfway, holding a spear with both hands. Now we fight, Farah shouted. You're going down there. Jack grinned. It's better than waiting. He dropped from the ladder, hit the ground hard, and rolled. He jumped up fast, just as a creature lunged at him. Jack sidestepped and jammed the spear into its side. The beast howled and collapsed. Another creature leaped from behind, but a vine whip trap snapped, wrapping around its neck and pulling it down. Jack moved through the chaos like he had trained for this all his life. He had, up above, Dren threw a spear down. It hit nothing, but the creatures backed off for a second. Farah shouted, Jack, more on your left. Jack turned and kicked dirt into a creature's face, then slammed it with a branch. He wasn't stronger than the beasts. He was smarter, faster, prepared. The fight went on for what felt like hours. The traps slowed the creatures, the fire confused them, and Jack was everywhere at once. By the time the last beast ran back into the woods, bleeding and limping, the ground was covered in broken branches, dead leaves, and claw marks. 4 creatures lay still. The others fled. Jack stood in the smoke, breathing hard, blood on his arms, not his own. Above, Farah and Dren looked down in shock. He had one dot inside the orbiting ship. The alien commanders stared at the battlefield. One said softly, "He fought them alone. No student has ever survived a full attack like that." Another added, "The commander stepped back from the screen. Send this recording to Central Council. The humans must be evaluated." Back in the forest, Jack dragged the creature bot to the fire. He burned 2 of them, buried one, and skinned the last. Dren looked sick, but Jack just worked calmly. He didn't waste anything. The fur would be for warmth, the meat for later, the bones for tools. Everything had value, Farah whispered. This is his nature. As the sun rose, light spilled over the burned forest floor. The treehouse was still standing, so was Jack. He sat near the fire, sharpening more sticks, preparing again, always preparing. Farah and Dren stood near him now, not as students but as followers. He had earned their loyalty, not with words but with survival and fire and fear in the distance. Other students saw the smoke rising into the sky. They didn't know what had happened, but they felt something had changed. The human wasn't just surviving, he was becoming something greater. A builder, a warrior, a leader. The sun rose slowly over the forest. Smoke still drifted through the trees. The smell of burned wood, blood and wild fear hung in the air. But at the center of it all stood a strong wooden structure. Tall and firm. Jack Coles, Treehouse. Though not a treehouse anymore, it had become a fortress from a distance. Alien students watched in silence. They were dirty, tired and weak. Some were hiding in holes. Others sat on rocks, shivering. But all of them stared at one thing, the human stronghold. Wooden walls wrapped around the base like armor. 2 watchtowers stood at the corners, made of logs stacked high. Smoke from the fire rose steady and proud into the sky. Alien students whispered to each other. He built that in 6 hours. He fought the beasts and won. He made weapons, food, traps, and now others are following him. Inside the fortress, Jack Coles sat with a piece of bark, carving with a sharpened bone. Farah and Dren sat beside him, chewing on roasted meat. They didn't talk much anymore. They worked. They trained. They watched Jack. He was more than just a human now. He was the leader of the strong. Farah spoke softly. "Why are you still building? The walls are strong now." Jack didn't look up. "It's not just about survival anymore then." "What is it?" she asked. Jack stood and walked to the edge of the platform. He pointed across the forest. "There are others out there, lost, weak, waiting to die. They need something to believe in, something to come to." Farah looked confused. "And you think they'll come to you?" Jack looked down at the sharpened bone in his hand. "They already are." As if on cue, footsteps came from the forest. 2 alien students appeared from behind the trees. Hands up, they looked scared. Thin, dirty. Jack said nothing. The taller alien stepped forward. "We saw your fire. We saw what you built. We want to join you." Jack stared at them. "Why?" The alien answered. "Because we'll die out there and you made a place where we can live." Jack looked at Farah and Dren, then back at the newcomers. He pointed to a pile of logs. "You want to stay. You help build." They rushed over without a word. The Empire was growing. Above, in the orbiting control ship, the alien commander stood in silence. The feeds now showed something unexpected. More and more students were heading toward Jack's location. Some limped, some crawled, but they were all drawn to the fire. "The structure." "The leader." "Sir," said a technician. "Do we stop this?" The commander slowly shook his head. "No, we watch." Back in the forest, Jack's fortress came alive. Logs were moved. Fires were lit. Watchpoints were added. The students worked fast under Jack's guidance. His voice was firm, clear, and calm. "Strengthen the western wall. Don't tie the rope that loose. It'll break under weight. Cut the branches higher. We need a better view." By mid-afternoon, 10 alien students now lived in the fortress. They weren't the same as before. They stood taller, moved faster, spoke less, worked harder, because Jack had changed them later. While others rested, Jack climbed to the highest point of the tree tower. The wind hit his face. From there, he could see almost the entire forest. He saw smoke from a distant fire, another group struggling to survive. He saw shadows, moving creatures still hunting, and then he saw something else, a drop pod. It was falling slowly from the sky. Another student. Another test subject, another soul about to enter the wild. Farah climbed up to him. "Are you really building an empire?" Jack kept looking at the sky. "No, I'm building a message." "What kind of message?" Jack's eyes narrowed. "That humans don't run, we don't hide, we adapt, we lead." He turned to her. "Let the galaxy watch. Let them see what one human can do, with nothing but sticks, fire, and time." The students below were now adding a guide, a proper one, Jack's design. One alien tied a flag made from cloth and bark. On it, a rough shape of earth. They hung it high. A symbol, a warning, a promise. The creatures didn't return that day. They stayed deep in the forest. They knew something had changed. The fire no longer meant food. That meant danger. It meant humans were here in orbit. The alien commander sent a message to Central Council. "One human has reshaped the exam. 10 students now follow him. He has created shelter, defenses, food, and order. Recommend canceling the test before control is lost. No reply came, only silence, and below, the Empire kept growing. As night came, the fortress glowed orange under the FIRELIGHT. Inside the high tower, Jack Cole sat writing on bark with charcoal. It wasn't words, just marks, plans, shapes, ideas. His eyes stayed open. The forest had tested him, and he had answered not with fear, but with fire. The sky turned gray. Thick clouds covered the sun. A strange wind blew through the trees, cold, sharp, and full of warning. The forest had gone quiet again, but this time, it felt different. Inside the wooden fortress, Jack Cole stood at the center. He wasn't building now, he was waiting. So were the others. 10 alien students stood near the fire, spears in hand. Feridren and the others had changed. Their eyes were sharper, their backs straighter. They no longer looked like students. They looked like defenders. Up in orbit, the alien command ship buzzed with activity. The instructors watched Jack's live feed. Their voices were low and tight. Something's coming, one whispered. We've lost signals from the east quadrant. The commander stared at the screen. Prepare the judgment drone. A large metal pod began to warm up. It would drop straight into the forest and decide if the survival test was complete or failed. Back in the fortress, Jack saw the black dot fall from the clouds. It spun as it dropped, fast, heavy, and loud. Ian whispered, "Is that a rescue?" "No," Jack said. "That's judgment." The pod smashed into the forest floor with a deep thud. Dirt and smoke flew everywhere. The trees shook. Then it opened. Out stepped something huge. Not a beast, not a student, a drone. 7 feet tall, black metal, 4 arms, 2 glowing red eyes. It walked like a living machine, no emotion, no mercy. The judgment drone. The drone scanned the fortress. "Survival unit located," it said in a flat voice. It pointed its scanner toward Jack. "Human life form. Status active. Rule breach. Unauthorized leadership." Jack didn't flinch. He stepped forward slowly, unarmed, eyes locked on the drone. "I didn't break the rules," he said. "I followed them better than anyone." The drone paused. Unauthorized structure, unauthorized group formation, potential threat to balance. Jack narrowed his eyes. "You dropped us here with nothing. You wanted to see who would survive." "I did." He pointed to the others. "They did, not because we ran, not because we hid, but because we built, we protected, we worked." The drone's red eyes blinked slowly. Human actions, efficient, strategic, dangerous. The wind blew hard across the forest. Trees creaked. The others held their breath. Jack didn't move. He stared at the machine like it was just another challenge. Then the drone raised. One arm, a weapon, began to charge. "Judgment, termination, order ready." Farah shouted, and Dren stepped forward with his spear. The others moved to 10 against 1, but Jack raised a hand. "Don't." Everyone stopped. Jack walked toward the drone alone. "You want to end me," he said. "Then look me in the eye when you do it." The drone's weapon hummed louder. "Final warning." Jack stared up at it. His voice was calm. "You fear what we can become. That's why you came. Not because we failed, but because we succeeded too well." The drone froze, its head tilted slightly, then powered down its weapon. Silence. A new voice came from above, from the sky, from the ship. "Command override. Judgment cancelled." Everyone looked up. Survival test complete. Human subject Cole passed with distinction. Alien students transferred to human leadership. Mission now. Observation. Jack blinked once. The drone turned and walked back to the pod. It climbed inside, folded its arms, and closed its eyes. Then, the pod rose into the air and flew away. The forest slowly came back to life. Birds sang again. Leaves RUST-led. A soft wind moved through the trees. The danger was gone. Jack stood still for a moment, then turned back toward the fortress. Farah ran up beside him. "What just happened?" Jack looked at the sky. "They watched us and they got scared." Dren nodded. "Because you beat their test?" Jack shook his head. "No, because we changed the rules." Later that night, a fire burned at the center of the fortress. All 11 survivors sat around it, humans and aliens, side by side. They didn't speak much, but they felt it. They were part of something new now, not just a team, not just a group, but a beginning, high in orbit. The alien commander stared at the last line on his screen. Human status, leader, potential threat level, unknown. He closed the file and started writing a new one. Earth reevaluate status. Back in the forest, Jack stood at the highest point of his wooden tower. He looked across the trees, deep into the dark horizon. No fear in his eyes, only fire. The forest had tested him. The aliens had judged him, but the result was clear. A new empire had begun, and it was built with nothing but empty hands, sharpened sticks, and a human will that refused to break.